Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In this episode, we will fetch our data from our database, create our home page, and student view with search functionality. So, let's get started. On our text editor, open home.php file under Pages folder inside our Views folder. In the home.php file, let's add our home page design. Now, let's view our home page in our browser. First, we need to start our Apache and MySQL. Then open our browser. In the URL type localhost phpMyAdmin and open other tab, and in the URL type localhost/smis. Enter our credential we have created in the last video. Now, it's time to fetch our data. First, let's create our students and course table. Select our database, then on the SQL tab type create table students parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis add column ID with data type to int, set to primary key and auto increment. Second, add column student ID set to varchar length 9 and not null. Third, add column last name varchar length 50 and not null. Fourth, add column first name varchar length 50 and not null. Fifth, add column middle name varchar length 50 and not null. Next, create our course table. Below create table students, add SQL command, create table course parenthesis. Inside parenthesis, add column ID set to int, primary key and auto increment. Second, add column student ID set to varchar length 9 and not null. Third, add column year level set to varchar length 5. Fourth, add column section set to varchar length 5 and not null. Fifth, add column major set to varchar 50 and not null. Sixth, add column accreditation year set to varchar length 20 and not null. Lastly, add column sem set to varchar length 20 and not null. Let's insert some data to our tables. First, we will insert data to students table. To do that, on the SQL tab, type the following SQL commands. Then click Go button. Next, we will insert data to course table with same student ID number. To do that, on the SQL tab, type the following SQL commands. Then click Go button. After we have inserted some data to our database, let's head back our text editor. Open dbQuery PHP file and inside add the following functions: get total users, get total students, get student lists, and get student by keyword. Inside get total users function, let's add our query to fetch all the users, then prepare query statement, next execute then return row count. Next, inside get total students function, let's add our query to fetch all the students, then prepare query statement, next execute then return row count. Next, inside get student list function, let's add our query to fetch all the students and join with the course table, then prepare query statement, next execute then return all the rows fetched from the tables. Next, inside get student by keyword function, let's add our query to fetch all the students, join with the course table and add our where clause with parameters, then prepare query statement, next execute by passing the parameters with value then return all the rows fetched from the tables. Now, we finished setting up our fetch functionality. Let's go back to our home page. At the top of the page, let's include our dbQuery.php and create an instance of our dbQuery class. Next, let's get the total number of users and total number of students by calling the functions from dbQuery class. Let's go to our browser and check if we get the result from database. Let's refresh the page in order to reload and the function will fetch the data. Here, we might have different results from your end, since I already have a data from my students and users table. Now, let's create our student list page. On our editor, let's add studentlist.php file and inside include the header, navigation bar, and footer PHP files. Let's add a link to our student page in our navigation bar. Open navbar.php file inside our templates folder and add the link. The two dots slash means one folder up. If you only put one dot then slash, it will look for the file in your root folder. So make sure you put it right. Next, let's add design on our student list page. Inside, add the table for our student lists. Then, at the top let's include our dbQuery PHP file and create an instance of our dbQuery class. Now, let's create a variable named students, then call the function from our dbQuery class to fetch all the records from the students table, join with the course table and pass it to our variable students. Next, let's check if the variable students is not empty, then we will loop through our students variable and display the data. If variable students is empty, then we will display no records found. Let's check our student list page in our browser. On the navigation bar, click Students menu, then select View Lists. As you can see in our student list page, we have successfully fetched the data from the database. Next, we will add our search functionality. In our Actions folder, let's add students.php file. Next, open navbar.php, then add our form action and set the form method to get. Next, let's get our URL and put it in our hidden input value and make sure that your search input name is set to keyword. Now, open students.php, then let's check if form get keyword submitted is not empty. Then we will redirect the user to student lists page and pass the keyword in the URL. If the keyword is empty, we will redirect the user back to the previous page with the URL sent via form submit. In our student list.php file, let's modify our students variable. Here, we will be using the ternary operator, the shorthand for an if-else statement. First, we will check if the get keyword is set, then we will get student by keyword, otherwise we will get the student lists. Now let's try our search functionality. On our browser, refresh the page. Firstly, on our navigation bar, enter the student info you wish to search. Let's try to search with empty field to see if our code works. As you can see, our code works perfectly. We are not redirected to the student list page if our search field is empty. If we are going to inspect our page by pressing the keyboard keys Ctrl-Shift-I and checking our form in the navigation, the hidden input value is set to the current URL in our browser. Let's also try to search a record not in the lists. As you can see, our codes work perfectly. Next, let's create our user lists page. On our text editor, add userlist.php file inside pages folder, then include our header, navigation, and footer PHP files. Next, we will require our dbquery.php file, then create an instance of our class dbquery. Then let's add our HTML table inside our user list.php file. At the top of the file, let's create a variable users, then call the function getUserLists from our DB query and pass it to our users variable. Next, let's add our getUserLists on our DB query. Open dbquery.php file and inside the class add the function getUserList. Inside the function let's add our query statement. Next prepare our query, then execute and return all the rows fetched from the users table. Let's add our link to our user lists. Open navbar.php file and add the link. Now let's go back to our user list.php file and check is the users variable is not empty, then let's loop through the users and display the data. If the users variable is empty, then let's show no records found. Now let's display our user list page. Open the browser and on the navigation bar click System User menu, then select View Lists. That's it for today's video. In the next episode, we will create our add, edit, delete functionality. Thank you for watching.